welcome to Dragonheart, the official Wrexham AFC radio show on Calon FM and available as a podcast afterwards. Today we have Mark Griffiths and Bill Long, and we'll be talking about Dagenham and Redbridge, National League streaming, football rivalries, and taking fan questions.
Young again in the middle of a corner, he's looking for Hayden. We'll drop back post for Jordan Davis, it's a good header, it's gone back in, it's 1-0! Yes! Super Paul Mullin! 1-0 Wrexham. It was coming, the pressure was relentless.
This is Dragonheart.
Dagenham and Redbridge, Mark. Was that the most complete performance of Phil Parkinson's reign?
Was it the most complete performance of all time by any football team? I mean, all right, I've written about this, funnily enough, in the Leader yesterday, and okay, I'm probably going to say no in terms of, goodness me, those Stockport wins were something else, weren't they, last season? I mean, we're talking about a team that was absolutely on fire, was bossing the National League, and we battered them twice. But in terms of, I think, what Parkinson's looking to achieve with this team, in terms of the aesthetics and the way it looked, the quality of the football on the eye, and I think as well the organisation of the team and the way that they were so intuitive in finding each other quickly because they've been working on those shapes in the training grounds, that was fabulous. So I reckon just behind the Stockport games, not least because I know they've had a rough time of it at the start of the season, but I don't think Dagenham and Redbridge are pushovers at all. This is, they're different levels, say, from, I hate saying no disrespect, because people always say no disrespect and then disrespect, but they are a different kettle of fish from Dorking and Maidstone, and they're decent, I think. They'll be in contention for the playoffs. But my God, I mean, we could have had 10, couldn't we? Really? I mean, not just saying that glibly. We really could have had 10.
Yeah, we really could have. I mean, two James Jones chances sort of crop up in my mind as being opportunities where we could have really ramped the score up. I think you're right. I think the level of opposition just, I think we were sort of maybe unfairly at times sort of like labelled as struggling with better teams. I think last year, even like taking, say, when we beat Grimsby 1-0 when Ollie Palmer's debut, we were, it was a bit of a, how can I put it? Not the most exciting performance, and we've sort of been labelled as, we get a lucky goal and we can hold on, and we able to beat these sort of teams. I don't necessarily think that's true, but I think the last game, sort of shown that actually that we've got the capability to really perform against a team that are going to be in at least the top sort of 9-10 teams, aren't they? I'd say
100%, and as well. I mean, I don't know if some people are still saying that about us. Fair enough, but I don't agree with them. I mean, for me, the turning point was, I know I keep saying it, that January transfer window when we completed the team. Palmer comes in, McFadden comes in, and all of a sudden those missing pieces of the jigsaw are there. So if you think about since then, well, we beat Halifax twice. Halifax were right up there. We absolutely thrashed Boreham Wood twice at home. The first time when they came to us, they hadn't lost in donkey's years. So it had an incredible long run and hadn't been letting any goals in. We put 4 past them, and then we put 3 past them, or the other way around. We beat Stockport twice comfortably, 5-0 aggregates over 2 games. Solihull were the only good team to come to the racecourse after we completed our side and get points off us.
And you could argue really as well, Mark, that we were unlucky not to win that game, or at least get a penalty that would put us on footing to go and win that game.
Yeah, pretty clear penalties, I recall. And also Joe Sparrow, who's their star player, should have been sent off. I mean, for high kicking, you kick a player in the face when they're jumping for the ball. These days, that's a straight red card. And, so there's a lot of, even that game could easily have gone our way. So, I don't feel too concerned. I suppose maybe people look at that Chesterfield game, but that was a learning process, maybe in a different way. Early in the season, before we totally settled in, And also, Parkinson knew he had a strong squad, and he rotated that squad around, and it didn't work.
Yeah,
and maybe he's learned a lesson from that, because that's 3 games unchanged. And really, apart from that Chesterfield game, he hasn't altered things much from that basic shape, has he?
No, and I think fair play to Neil. He's been banging the drum for weeks now that we should just be keeping a team that are doing well and that are settled, and that they should be the ones that are playing. And you got to say he's been right so far, hasn't he? Because ever since we have stuck with the same team, or more or less the same team, except Mendy and McFadden have sort of come in and out a little bit due to injuries or whatever, they've been playing fantastic. I was just so impressed on Tuesday. I think that was we've had a little bit of stick, Mark, haven't we, for sticking up for this team this year? And I know you, well, a little bit in the comments. Maybe you do. Maybe I'm just a sucker for reading the comments and other places. But I'm not a huge amount of stick. But people were saying what I think after the Gateshead game, we were all quite happy, and it was me, you, and Shay did that podcast, and then the comments dragging out. There were a few people saying, "What were you watching?" But I think that was the performance that sort of showed us, that can sort of show a 10,000 home crowd that this side mean the business, and actually that they are building up towards something probably quite special.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's put it this way, and please don't get me wrong, you get nothing for winning games in September, but I've just put out the Wrexham Anorak, and one of the facts in it is that if you convert 3 points for a win, after 8 games of the season, the last time we had more points than we do right now was 1902.
Wow.
Yeah, this is the third. I know it's rather fake, isn't it? But then Match of the Day quote these things all the time without much context. If you convert 2 points to win to 3 points to win, so it's a fair comparison, we've equaled the best points total after 8 games since we joined the Football League in 1921. There are 2 seasons before then when we did better, but I think maybe that illustrates, the difference in football, and why, although those are club records, definitely 1921 is when we actually get into competitive football, where we can measure now against then, I would say, because those 2 better runs that we had were in the Combination League, and, well, let's put it this way, in both those runs we beat Oswestry United. So we're up against very different types of competition. To be fair, early days of football, but still, this is different, isn't it?
It's completely different. I think there's still a part of me that thinks we haven't even kicked on yet. This is still just the start of it. It's weird that, like, you can't. How many is it now? Is it 20 goals in 5 games that we've scored? And to almost feel. Maybe this was the game where you think, right, we are kicking on now, and this is the start of something. I'm always, like you say, you don't ever win the league in September. I'm always wary, but for everybody, and I said this to Che on Tuesday, you kept updating me on the Chesterfield score. That doesn't matter. Like, they're going to drop. In my opinion, they're going to drop off. We've got the squad to keep up with it, except maybe, touch wood, any serious injuries or anything like that. I feel like we've got the best squad in the league, and probably the best starting 11, and probably the 2 top goal scorers by the end of the year.
I mean, the way I look at it is, has anyone got any recollection of a National League team since we went down playing the sort of stuff we're playing at the moment, or consistently playing as well as we have since January? Logic says we should win the league, and I'm not trying to be arrogant, just logic suggests it. We really are a very, very strong team with quality Football League players.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, actually. I think that's probably where my confidence comes from, comparing our records to Chesterfield's, is that we've been on this form since January, haven't we? But except for a couple of dips with the trophy in the end of the season, which even then, if you take them statistically and look at them outside of the context of the title race, they were still really good runs. We just had like 1 loss against Woking and a draw against Boreham Wood that both sort of came at the wrong time. And then obviously the Dagenham and Redbridge game at the end of the season. But that, the damage was done because Stockport had already won the league. If you look at that in terms of form and how we've been playing, it was title winning form. We just hadn't done enough earlier in the season. That's all it comes down to.
100%, and let's be honest, that's because we were stuck with transfer windows. So Stockport can bring in players of the caliber of Sarcevic from the Football League as the season goes on and bed them in. And we have to wait till January, and then we're limited after that as well when we have injuries kicking in at the end of the season, players getting tired, and we haven't got the squad depth. But now we have, and we also don't have to worry about transfer windows. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not really listening at the moment to people talking about those other teams. Partly because I feel early season maybe you shouldn't, because things are still settling down. We're just over. We're essentially a sixth of the way through the season, but also because, let's be honest, I mean, come on, they should be worried about us.
Yeah.
Chesterfield should be, everyone's, Chesterfield lost a man and just looking back on one. Yeah, in a game they should win. Now, I know we were in a game we probably should win, but we had the toughest opponents, I would say, out of the top four, who all won. And for me, we're the ones sending a message out, aren't we? We just won 5-0 at Dorking, then we win 4-0 against Dagenham, could have been twice as many. We're the ones who are saying, oh, by the way, look at us. We're a bit tasty.
And that side that started on Tuesday was, except for Mendy and Howard in goal, was pretty much the exact. Am I right in thinking it's the exact same side that started against that? No, because Tyler French would have played. But generally, that's basically the same side that lost 3-0 against Dagenham Redbridge at the end of last season. There's all the psychological effects of being involved in a battle like that ruins the end of your season, and we've gone away and put in that kind of performance. Really, genuinely, just look fantastic. I mean, going back to the catalyst of the start of our season, from January last season, Ollie Palmer, what a performance he put in, Mark. It was unreal, wasn't it?
He is statuesque, isn't he? He's remarkable. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I was saying this in the Final Whistle podcast. When we brought him in, I knew of him at Wimbledon as being a player who, despite being built like he is not necessarily just a target man. He's very good with the ball at his feet. He likes to get the ball, turn, get his head up, and he spots runs really well, and he can play really well, and he can play good passes. Well, that was the clearest illustration we've seen of that. I mean, he was dropping into midfield, he was pinging the balls over the top, he was playing big switches, his passing was fabulous. Like I said, I think it links into good training ground work, that the players really look like they know the pre-arranged movements. They know where somebody is going to go if they get here. Mullen's going to run there. Number of times Mullen dropped off and tried to play little first-time balls around the corner because he knows where the player's supposed to go. But Palmer with the ball at his feet, it's like Pirlo. He was wonderful. He was really absolutely destroying them, wasn't he? It was fantastic performance.
Yeah, he was something else. And I obviously appreciated his performance, but then I watched the highlights earlier today and just like you say, some of the passing, like maybe it's just because I sit behind the goal and I couldn't quite see it, but it was like, wow. Some of those balls he was playing across to the wide men from deep. It was a stunning performance, absolutely stunning performance.
I've just got up the spreadsheet. So the Dagenham game last season, there are 3 changes from the team on. Well, no, sorry, 4. Dibble in goal. Yeah. Paul Johnson at right wing back, McFadden at left wing back, and as you say, French at centre back. So 4 changes.
But it's not a hugely changed team, is it, at all?
No. I mean, as I recall, Dibble you couldn't blame in that game, so the change of goalkeepers not that relevant really, and the midfield and attack are identical. Yeah.
So just goes to show how much the hard work they've been doing on the training grounds really paying off. I mean, James Jones had a fantastic game as well, didn't he?
Oh yeah, I was really pleased for him. Especially first half, his energy was ludicrous and his passing was really crisp as well. And in the second half, I still thought he played very well. His passing just went slightly off, but the number of times he lost the ball and came back and got it. He's just great, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's so, his energy is obvious, but his movements and his pace as well are important to the way we build up on the right-hand side. And there's a nice sort of, is this an oxymoron, like asymmetrical balance, in the sense that Cleworth on the left of the 3 is much happier to come forwards and actually involve himself in attacking moves. Hayden will, and can do it to good effect, but he has got on the right-hand side of midfield ahead of him a player who wants to come and interact with the wing back. So, it's like Cleworth and Mundy interact on one side, and that then allows Jordan to drift about a bit more, and then Jones and Ford interact more on the right. And it's just interesting little changes of balance and emphasis.
Yeah, spot on. And I think sort of going back to the 98-point season was the last time that we had wing backs on either side, or full backs on either side, and midfielders interacting in different ways like that. Harris, Keats, and Ashton had a really good sort of a trio the way they used to work with each other. But then you also had Obeng, who would bomb down the wing, completely different sort of wing back to Ashton, and it's just hell of a time to be a Wrexham fan, Mark. I can't see. I know I don't think anyone was upset after this game, but even before this, I can't understand why anyone would have been upset before this, because we're just phenomenal to watch.
The excitement for me is that I look at this and then Dorking, and I think, well, there's two back-to-back annihilations of the opposition. And like I said, when I said no disrespect to Dorking, I mean, Dorking are a decent side. They've got some good results this season and had some competitive performances this season. But we controlled them from start to finish, and the same pretty much with Dagenham as well. And you're referring to that Gateshead game earlier. I mean, for the first half hour, we were like Tuesday, but we didn't manage to sustain it, although we were in control in the second half.
Yeah.
But the last two games, we have pretty much sustained that until 90 minutes, and we haven't really taken our foot off the gas until the game is clearly won. And that's a step up. That's gelling, isn't it?
Yeah,
put the full 90 in.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's hopefully we can carry this sort of form on. It's kind of scary to think where we might end up if we carry on playing like this for the rest of the season. There's obviously going to be dips. I mean, but then you got the likes of Elliot Lee to come off the bench or to come into the squad. Tom O'Connor, almost like the forgotten man of the team.
And then Tunnicliffe, who I think is a very, very good player and a terrific signing, he's not even set foot on the pitch yet.
No.
Wow.
Matt Linden, who hasn't even been in the squad for a lot of games, who played really well at points last year. It's a embarrassment of riches.
Like you say, though, there will be ups and downs. There will be peaks and troughs. And, we're bound to have the odd little stumble, and we mustn't panic when that happens. I mean, for example, I strongly suspect we might only win by, say, one goal at Man City in the quarterfinal of the FA Cup. You've got to expect, sometimes our standards will dip, but you still got through to the next round, and, that's okay. We can pick it up afterwards.
Absolutely. I can't see any reason why Pep isn't lying awake at night thinking about the mighty Reds coming to town later on in the year.
I can't wait to see Ollie Parr bullying Diaz. It's going to be fun.
Well, these performances are absolutely fantastic, and it's a shame that our new American fans aren't really having the opportunity to witness them, isn't it, Mark? So I think after this, we're going to talk about streaming and how hopefully, or we'll see how it goes, but in the future that this is something that the American fans can watch.
I'm Aaron Hayden, and this is Dragon Hearts.
Well, I think the last couple of weeks I've been trying to troll Reddit, a little bit of the YouTube comments, Twitter, all that sort of stuff. And I think the biggest question on all of our international fans' lips, Mark, is where can I watch Wrexham? Unfortunately, regardless of the fact that the club have been trying their hardest to get the matches online for the international fans to stream, it's not happened, has it?
No, sadly. Where can you watch Wrexham? The racecourse. And it's absolutely galling and absurd. I mean, honestly, I can't. There's no justification here. It's 2022, for goodness sake. They need to, the National League Board are stopping this. I don't feel they've got any good reason to. And I mean, if they did, and I know they've given their reasons, which I'll happily get to in a second, but if they did, I mean, Sean Harvey's memo, his counter-offer of, until you've sorted it out, please can we stream, and we'll share all the profits with all the other National League teams. I mean, talk me through why they've said no to that. I mean, I don't see how that can have any effect on anything except giving the other National League teams a little bit of money in their pocket. It won't be much because, there's 72 teams in the National League, which people forget. There's 3 leagues, not 1. But still, why can't you do that? Well, if I knew the answers to that, I probably wouldn't be able to say it because I get sued.
I think it's one of those where they I got to be careful. I suppose we've both got to be careful to a degree what we say. It's difficult when these things are ongoing. The National League is supposed to be having a meeting this week at some point, aren't they? From what I remember rightly, yeah. It could be that by the time this goes out, that the decision's been made, or it might not even be made public until next week. But something might come out soon, so this could be slightly dated by then. But at the same point, if we could just discuss how it's gone up to now, I mean, look. We've said it before, but there's bound to be people who've emigrated to Australia, to New Zealand, to Canada, America, for all these other clubs that would want to access the games. I can't see why those clubs, Notts County, Chesterfield are 2 huge clubs, Scunthorpe, Oldham. They're really big clubs that have got big fan bases, and they're just being prevented from streaming their games as well. I don't think it's just about Wrexham. I think it's just a silly decision regardless, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a danger, and I'm not saying this is the reason, but it's very easy to jump to this conclusion. There's a dangerous jealousy that Wrexham are fortunate enough to have this fantastic takeover, that we're looking to succeed by raising funds abroad, by expanding our fan base massively, and therefore, the board members, who are mostly made up of representatives of other National League clubs, don't like the idea of us having more spending money. Well, we already have bigger budget than everyone else now. They don't like that, and so they want to put the kibosh on it. Well, that's completely rules out what you're saying about serving fans, which you'd like to think would be an important thing to football administrators, although often there isn't. But also, they're an organisation made up of the clubs and serving the clubs. So, like you say, but clubs can't make money out of this. It's a commercial endeavour. So, can you imagine an association of car dealers saying, "But you can't sell cars online, just on the forecourt"? Like I said before, it's 2022. Why are you putting limits on your own members to make money? Absurd. And then, right, if we go away game and we stream it, clearly we've got to get permission from that away team, and surely there'll be some remuneration for them. So go figure. That just makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure if, let's take the Dorking game for an example. All right, maybe not the greatest example because it was a Saturday 3 o'clock and there is the embargo on that for streaming that domestically. But if they could stream that internationally, and let's say the streaming numbers during COVID were roughly about 1,000 a game, weren't they? 1,500, something like that. And obviously you got to take into account that there would be families watching those games and stuff like that. So it's not quite the same as the attendance figures for going to the race course. But 1,500 at a tenner a pop, that's £15,000 that a club could be splitting with us if we were to do it 50-50. And I'm sure a club like Dorking aren't going to say no to half of that, are they? And
before I respond to that, I would also say, look at the comments of their manager. There's lots of people who are experienced in non-league football and who are linked to the smaller clubs in the National League who wish us well and think that this sort of thing is sensible. It's only a small handful of influential people who are against us. The clubs like Dorking, as far as they're concerned, we can do what we want to do. And like you said, there could be knockback benefit for them. I mean, we see in the Football League now, there's a big row about streaming revenues, isn't there? Where there's an argument about whether the revenues for each match should be split or whether it should be kept by the home team or whether it should be, done on the basis of you state which team you support when you buy your streaming pass. And then those monies are distributed according to how many each team sell. And I can see the arguments and concerns in that. But my point, though, is that at the moment, it's only us who are looking to set this up. We're saying, we're on record saying we'll go along with the National League if they want to start their own platform. But in the meantime, please, can't we just do this? It just seems churlish and spiteful to stop us. Well, if there's any logical reason, I'd love to hear it. I really, really would.
I think it's probably logistics that are holding it back. There must be an element of it. I don't work in the TV industry, so I'm sure there must be some genuine reasons why there's a bit of concern. I can understand that. And if the National League wanted to do a central platform, then obviously there would have to be a standard that went across all of the 24 clubs in our division. And if they wanted to expand it to the north and south as well, there would probably have to be standardizing 72 clubs at this level. Might be difficult. It might be something that they haven't got the manpower to do. But if that's the case, just let us do it. Just let us just stream it and do it internationally.
Yeah. That's my point.
Yeah,
that's exactly it, isn't it? I have no doubt that this is a huge logistical undertaking, and I think it's beyond the National League by a huge amount. So why aren't they just letting us do it for ourselves? And let's imagine that what they've said, because their reason they're giving is they're going to have their own centralized platform for the National League. That's the reason they've given. So no, we won't let you do it because we're going to have you on our platform. And that's why, like I said, that Wrexham have been saying, yeah, but let us do it until you have the platform, and then we'll willingly join you. What's the downside of letting us do it? That we would build up an audience in the National League that is familiar with and comfortable with streaming, building on top of what we had throughout lockdown, that people who weren't sure about it, who support other teams, would get a chance to try it and then see a good quality stream and realize that, wow, this actually really works. This is as good as watching it on TV, and they'll be keen to jump onto it when a National League launch. It's a win-win for the National League to let us do it. As for the idea that they'll get their own platform going, right, prepare yourself. If you thought I was ranting already, hey, just wait. All right, they're saying they've been looking into this for a while, they're saying, and they put out a tender for companies to handle it all. To me, this sounds like an expensive undertaking. Let me talk through a couple of logical points. BT cover the National League, and the National League keep talking about, well, you got to consider BT. Well, I haven't seen BT make any noises complaining about streaming at all, and now the National League are talking about setting up a platform for streaming. So clearly BT are not standing in the way. They won't let their games be streamed, but I really don't think there's anything in it for them at all, whether the other games are streamed or not. All it does is advertise their products. But the thing is, BT Sport, huge organization, obviously, they get the clubs to do it all. So when they started covering the National League, they gave every club a second-hand broadcast camera, and they gave a short training, sort of 2-day session to teach people how to film, edit, and upload from each club. And then that was that. BT are not making any investment into infrastructure. They're not making any sort of investment in staffing beyond the bare minimum to A, cover live games, and to B, offer some match day support on match day. They've upgraded it now slightly. The clubs now all have got those little live backpack things with an aerial sticking out, which basically you stick that on the platform next to the camera. And now, as you're filming, that footage is going direct to Olympic Park in London, where BT is based, rather than what it used to be, which was you then had to go away and edit it up very roughly so they could then just tidy it up for the highlights. But I mean, this is that's the logistics that BT have put in just to covering one division. They haven't put it in. They've just got a few guys editing, a few technical guys in case something goes wrong, and they're getting clubs to film it for free. Now, the National League seem to be saying they're going to launch 72 separate streaming platforms, all feeding into one platform. Oh, I'm looking forward to this. I'm really looking forward to that suddenly appearing on our laptops next week. If you go on the National League, if you go on the National League's website, right? I wrote about this in the leader last week, and I cut bits of it out, although I did publish it on the Dragonheart blog, so we could all be sued together. And bearing in mind your profession, I'd be interested if after this you have a quick look at the National League's website. For me, it's not the best. And in the original article, I wrote that when I look at it, the phrase that comes to mind is, would probably get a teenager a C grade in IT, a GCSE IT, because it's decent enough, it's tidy, they've done the skills right, but there's very little else to compare. There's no bangs and whistles. It's a C grade. It's not better than that, I think. Their video page is exciting, because let's be honest, that would appear to be the precursor to this glorious platform they're going to put out for us. It's only got 4 teams' videos on it. They're responsible for 72 clubs, but only 4 of those clubs, all of which are at National League North or South level, actually have their videos on the page. And all it is a series of embeds off YouTube. So I'm assuming that there's a person at each of those 4 clubs who has decided, oh, you know what, fair enough, I'll upload this for you. And all they're doing is copying and pasting the embed codes, because it's often quite difficult to work out what games they are, because say they've titled their YouTube highlights, Gary gets the winner. That's all you see. There's no other text, because football clubs don't tend to be very good, except at the high level, of actually doing the basics on YouTube. They just upload it and leave it. And so you've just got this contextless mess of games from 4 clubs out of the 72. And that's their video platform at the moment. So I don't see that expanding to live streaming going across for all of us anytime soon. And if they're going to do what they seem to be saying, which is putting it out to tender and bringing a company in, well, BT aren't willing to put those sorts of resources into this, which immediately tells me this is not necessarily a clever financial move. But let's pretend it is. If you run, Bill, that IT logistics company, you're going to charge a lot of money for that service, aren't you?
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Where's the National League getting that from?
Well, there's a lot to unpick there, Mark, to be fair.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
No. I'm just, you can probably see the reflection in my glasses. I'm looking at the Vanarama National League website now, and I am seeing, you were very kind in saying it was 3 or 4 clubs, because it looks like it's only 2 to me, and that would be Dulwich Hamlet, and Banbury United, who
Brackley have been.
Oh yeah, and Brackley, because there's a face I haven't seen in a long time there, Mr. Senior Kevin Wilkin, who does haunt my nightmares every now and again, just from that FA Trophy loss that we had. I
gave him a lift to a game once.
Did you? I'm sure he's a very lovely bloke, by the way. I got.
Oh, he's a lovely fella, absolutely. Yeah. Maybe a bit too nice in a way, but yeah, we were driving to Altrincham, and my lad Ben is in the back of the car, and he goes, "That's Kevin Wilkin." And there's a couple of blokes standing next to a broken down car on the hard shoulder of the M56. and I was like, "Are you sure?" And he goes, "Yeah, definitely." So we came off, and we were hurriedly phoning Geraint Parry and saying, "Is the manager in trouble?" He said, "Yeah, his car's just broken down. He's stuck." So we came off at the next junction, did a U-turn, came back. I had to go back to the last junction to do another U-turn on the roundabouts, not on the motorway, and came back up and said, "Hi, Kevin, do you want to lift it to the ground?" And so, yeah, he left Gary Mills, that's the other Gary Mills, his assistant there, just abandoned him with the car. That's how irreplaceable he was. And then we gave Kevin Wilkin a lift to the Alty game, which we won convincingly. So maybe he should have not turned up till quite late on a regular basis.
So yeah, fair enough. Great story. I'm going back to the website. The website is run by a company called Pitch Aero or Pitch Hero. I don't know how you say it.
It's supposed to be Pitch Hero, but obviously it's not spelled like that.
Of course, right.
It's like Pitch Aero, and I think I'll say things about them if you want.
Well, I only for those who may be international listeners, beyond the leagues that were talked about on Welcome to Wrexham, you've also got what's more like sort of recreational leagues where just local people who are just playing for those teams and playing against other teams from the local area. So like just taking Wrexham, for example, it might be Llangollen Town versus Kevin Albion or whoever. I don't know whether they're in the same league, but those sort of level of teams. All of their websites are run through Pitch Hero usually, aren't they? So that's a platform that I'm sure there's absolutely nothing wrong with them, but they're a football-based platform mainly used by much lower division teams that sort of run their own websites under a specific template. So then they haven't even got their own infrastructure. They've clearly not got their own website designers. They've not got their own hosting. It's just, I'm sure they've got a great deal with Pitch Hero. I don't want to drag their name in the mud. They've done nothing wrong, but that's not exactly a setup that you'd think a league of our size would maybe go for. I could be completely unfair there, but it goes with what you were saying about how it's barely updated, because obviously they've given a model to the National League, who then don't go ahead and actually do much about it.
It's got a sort of slightly neglected look to it, hasn't it, that website?
Yeah, it really has.
There's not much content going on to it, really. I mean, I'm not trying to call people out, but it's just that the National League don't put much money into things like that, don't have that much money, and therefore I'm really skeptical about how they can suddenly set up a streaming service for 72 clubs.
Well, that's the thing, you see. So that's what's frustrating about it, is that we know all the clubs can perform these streams. They did it during lockdown. I mean, some of the clubs might not want to do those streams. There might be too much work for them. A team like Dorking might not be able to hire somebody to film a camera for the entire match. And fair enough, it is what it is. But why pretend that you're going to go and make a platform when you haven't even got an up-to-date homepage for your league? Like you say, they're either haven't got the capability to do it themselves, so they're either going to have to hire people to do it, or they're going to have to hire a firm, which for 72 different teams I wouldn't even want to rack the numbers up for that. Like, logistically, that's not even, no, it's not even worth trying to figure it out. It would be a lot of money.
And I assume what they're going to hope to do is what they've been doing with BT, which is they say, we're going to do this, then they just drop it on the clubs. And then you're just going to get volunteers filming it, and then those volunteers and those clubs will get it in the neck. And to throw it back, like I say, to small clubs. I'm not trying to be critical of small clubs at all. They're the lifeblood of the football pyramid. But you think of some of the smaller, say Brackley, Kevin Wilkins' club. How they're going to get it in the neck if their streams don't look spot on, but it'll all be done by volunteers. That's not fair.
Well, look, if we're honest, Mark, a lot of us at Wrexham are volunteers. Me and you are volunteers. There'll even be clubs in the Football League that have volunteers. It's no disrespect. It's more about being realistic, isn't it? It's absolutely no disrespect whatsoever. Anybody who might be listening from another club, who might be interested to see what we have to say about it, all three of you, if there's even any. But please don't take offence. So it's not us trying to be big time or anything. I think if anything, it comes from a place of we know how much work needs to go into it, and they're trying to pretend that they're going to put that work in, and they're clearly not, are they? As a governing body.
I mean, Wrexham are paying for a broadcast company to do the streaming. We have a volunteer from the media team commentating on it, and I'm just racking my brain. I think that's the only voluntary element of it. But that's why it looks professional, because it's professional, because we now have the funds to pay for that. Now, the thing is, the National League's model, let's be honest, will be to say to Wrexham, to take one example of the 72, please will you carry on funding that, and please will you continue doing it like that, but then, well, I guess we'd like a cut of the money from it. And the thing is, I mean, we've cut the legs from under their arguments, because Sean Harvey's essentially, we want to work for the good of football. Which is interesting, isn't it? When a club is saying we want to do this for the good of the entire league and the two below us, but the actual organisers don't seem to be quite singing from that same hymn sheet. They seem to be more saying, oh yeah, Chesterfield, Notts County, Wrexham, they'll make a lot of money. We'd like a cut of that rather than them having it. Seems a bit weird to me, I got to say. Maybe that's not their motivation, but really, why can't we stream stuff until they've sorted something out?
It does, and I think it's short-sighted, Mark, as well, because I think if you look at international fans of any sort, but I think especially North American fans, Maybe I'm wrong, but over here we're married to a club, aren't we? We're born into a local area, or our parents are born into an area, and you follow your parents' team, or maybe for whatever reason you weren't born in Wrexham, but you come to live in Wrexham and you've just started going to games, whatever. We sort of like generally overall, you get stuck to one team, and then you might have a Premier League team to go with it. But the American fans, they're watching after watching a documentary series. They might be quite into us, but they watch us play Chesterfield and actually turn around and say, "Oh, I quite like Chesterfield. I'm going to watch a couple of their games now."
Yeah.
They're not as stuck to us necessarily, and that exposure could be it could be invaluable. You could have teams from all walks of the league who it just opens up so much exposure, and I just think it's just so short-sighted.
You often see those little funny stories in the press, don't you, about the Norwegian fan club of Rickmansworth turn up, all four of them at a match. You know what I mean? It's just sometimes I come from Mexico, but I started being Concord Rangers on Football Manager, and now I'm coming over to watch a match. I mean, it's that sort of thing. Yeah, Welcome to Wrexham makes the National League look like a very sexy product, and I was thinking the same as you. Yeah, maybe people would say, "All right, then. Well, I don't know if I want to follow everyone else and follow Wrexham, but it looks like good fun, that football. They're all being streamed. Oh, let's have a look at it. Maybe we can. Maybe we'll become fans of walking."
Yeah, exactly. And I think Football Managers, you're spot on. There's a lot of people who from different, even in this country, a lot of people who were Premier League or Championship fans who played Football Manager for the last 10 years. They're bored of loading up their game and playing as Preston North End yet again. Oh, I've had enough of playing as this team. I'm gonna pick someone from the National League. There we go. Boring old Wrexham, they're all over the place. Let me go and play as a team on Football Manager that might beat Wrexham. I'll go as Notts County. Oh, Notts County are playing this weekend, and Preston are away. I'll stick Notts County on.
And there's a certain fascination in Football Manager, I think, of you have a player, they do well for you. You notice their team is playing. You want to have a little look at him as a real, actual human being and see what he's actually like as a player. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Little things like that. It's Football Manager is a great advert for football, and streaming is a great advert for football. And these things are all drawing people in because that's the world we're in now. And for the third time, I'll say it: National League. This is 2022.
I can actually give a specific story on that, Mark. So growing up, it wasn't until I was about 15 or 16 that I started really getting into watching Wrexham live. I was always sort of into football, but more from afar than anything. And I had a save on Football Manager. It would have been Championship Manager back then. I think it was like 03, 04 with Wigan. And there was a player for Wigan who was a class striker. I can't remember his name for the life of me. It's going to bug me now. But Wrexham were playing Wigan a couple of months after I'd started this save, so I went along to watch him play, and then about within a year I'd gotten into watching live football and going to watch Wrexham. So these things can happen, can't they?
Oh, no question at all. By the way, I'm a terrible digital confession now. I've done that thing once. That thing, that Football Manager thing.
Just yeah.
Put a suit on for a cup final.
Oh,
I got Rayo Vallecano to the Champions League final. I'm sorry, I'm wearing a suit. We lost, but I did it.
I think actually, Mark, that is pretty fair enough. Rayo Vallecano to get to the Champions League final definitely should be wearing a suit.
I felt terrible that I went to Juventus in the end. I feel bad about that. In fact, I kept 2 saves in case I decided I wanted to go back and pretend I said no. And because I just bought Gini Wijnaldum for nothing, so I thought he could add something. But yeah, if only he had stayed with me at Rayo rather than gone to Paris Saint-Germain, he wouldn't have got injured. This happens to me too much. My lads will often tell me shock news from football about what, and I'll realise that's on your save of Football Manager, isn't it? Oh yeah. It's not happened in real life. I was like, no. And I realised then, okay, I get excited when Harry Kane signs for Ipswich.
It's quite funny. Like we're kind of digressing, but it's funny how you can hate real life players because they've done something on Football Manager to you as well, isn't there? That happens as well. But anyway, maybe we could do a Football Manager special a bit later on in the year, or a FIFA special.
Well, we've already had Tim Lewis on, who is a Wrexham fan and a bit of a Football Manager aficionado. We'll have to do another one with him.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
100%.
And Mark Fennis from the club's media team. One of his passions is esports, and he sorts out conferences and stuff and tournaments. So yeah, because we could definitely have an e version of Dragonheart.
Yeah, 100%. It's a growing market, but leaving that there, I think, because we're going to start slowly getting out of our comfort zones on esports. I think, Mark. I mean, I quite like the games, but I'm well out of my comfort zone with that. After this, we're going to take a bit of a moment for some fan engagement and talk about rivalries.
Your town, your station, your voice. This is Calon FM.
So, it's rare for us to only have one game to talk about on Dragonheart, isn't it, Mark? But recently, like I said earlier, I've been trying to engage, especially with some of the international fans. And Che actually put a poll on Reddit the other day asking what the international fans would like to learn about, and coming out resoundingly on top was rivalries. So we're going to wait for Che and Neil to be here hopefully next week to have a proper talk about some of our bigger rivalries. But how about we sort of introduce the idea of rivalries or footballing rivalries to our international fans?
It's fascinating, isn't it? Because there are so many ways to define what a rivalry is. And that's why, we'll go into detail over it over the next few weeks and give examples, and they'll be really, really diverse. I mean, the traditional rivalry is geographic, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you get two teams who are close together. Okay, classic example, Liverpool and Everton are only separated by Stanley Park. They're about a mile apart, maybe slightly less. That's obviously an issue of locality, and that's the traditional way people talk about derbies. But then recently, people have been talking about whether the Liverpool-Man City rivalry now is like one of the great rivalries. And clearly, that's not really geographic. They're both in the northwest of England, but Liverpool would see Man United more as a rival traditionally. That's where the real anger and competitiveness seems to come in. But they have, over the last 3-4 years, been clearly the two best teams, certainly in Britain, if not further afield. So that has, the quality of the games between them has sort of turned it into something people suddenly are talking about as a great rivalry. Then you can have just a fixture with animus between the sides. I mean, for example, this weekend, the Leeds United-Man United game is off because with the police force being under strain because of the Queen's funeral at the weekend, that game's been called off because police will be probably needed in London. Well, Leeds and Man United, firstly, are a good, 50 miles apart, 40 miles apart? And secondly, are nowhere near London. But that's the nature of, they're not close to each other, but it's such a feisty derby that, so the people look at, it's still seen as one of the great rivalries. And then you can have random ones, can't you? I mean, the most famous random one in Britain, I suppose, is Crystal Palace and Brighton absolutely hate each other.
That's the one I was thinking of. Yeah.
But there's no reason. Well, it's football reasons or football matches. But again, Brighton is not in London. It's a fair distance. Crystal Palace could take their pick of local teams to have a rivalry with. And locality, like I say, I mean, Liverpool and Tranmere, say, are close together. Hey, big deal for Tranmere if they played Liverpool. Not a very big deal for Liverpool if they played Tranmere, even though they'll be the second closest professional club to them.
Yeah, it's a strange one, isn't it? I think your rule of thumb is if clubs are within 10, 15 miles of each other, they probably don't like each other. But it's not necessarily the case, is it? Wrexham haven't got a rivalry with Kevin Druitt. It's partly because they don't play in the same league as each other, but and partly because I bet a lot of people who go and watch Kevin Druitt also come and watch Wrexham in some form or another. But yeah, you could it's almost like you could draw a little map, and I think it's almost as much about density as well, Mark, isn't it? You know, you've got the take the West Midlands. London's its own thing because there's so many clubs in London. I don't think you could really compare it to anywhere else. But if you took the West Midlands, Villa hate Birmingham, Villa hate West Brom. Birmingham are not keen on West Brom, but I don't think it's much of a big deal. Villa and Wolverhampton don't like each other, but it's not really a big deal. And then you've got Wolves and West Brom that hate each other. And then you've got Walsall just down the road. It's only a couple of train stops away from Villa Park, and they play each other in pre-season friendlies. So I don't think it's very straightforward, is it? And especially when you compare it to American sports, where some of the great rivalries in American sports, you've got like the Lakers and the Celtics, where they're on completely different coasts from each other, and that's completely sporting, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I guess, and we'll have American listeners, obviously. I'm happy to be corrected on this. I mean, the sheer scale of the US means that an awful lot of teams won't really have local rivals. And you've got like Cascadia, rivalry, Oakland, and Vancouver and Seattle, and fairly close together, although probably in British terms, they wouldn't be considered close together. I've taken a Seattle to Vancouver coach trip, and it didn't feel like we were popping to Crewe to watch a game. And then also, and again, am I wrong? Pre-Moneyball Oakland A's would be seen as a little team. Not sure that actually, locally San Francisco Giants are going to be that bothered by them. There's more natural rivalry, say, between the LA Dodgers and New York teams because they used to come from Brooklyn. It's fascinating. It's a totally different setup. Also, you can have regional within a city, and things really vary there. Like Manchester City, Man United, although City now have moved out, have very specific traditional geographic areas they come from, even though, the modernities that the National League board don't want to accept mean that Man United are also, they're both supported all around the world. Liverpool and Everton traditionally was nothing of that. It started off as a religious rivalry and also just a rivalry between two clubs because some of the people at Everton had a disagreement with the board and split away to form Liverpool. But traditionally, that always used to be my brother's an Everton fan, my sister's a Liverpool fan, until fairly recently when it's actually taken a little bit of a nastier turn. I used to live in Liverpool, and genuinely, you go to derby matches and Liverpool and Everton fans would be sitting together. The Kop would still be the Kop and the away end would still be the away end. But there was nothing weird about some mixture in the stands. Now, it's very nasty derby. It's changed its nature. And then you look in Europe, and of course, you can get political derbies. So you can get Real Betis being seen as the aristocratic club and Sevilla being seen as the working class club. Likewise, Rayo Vallecano, we mentioned earlier, very much a left-wing club. Real Madrid, this big haughty club of the establishment, supposedly Franco's team. And then you have the other mix-up in Madrid of clubs, because Rayo Vallecano are a small club, and that's very different. They're like a British club. They have their own identity. Most of the smaller clubs in Spain, you'll support a big team as well. So Getafe, when they play Atletico Madrid, not Getafe, sorry, Leganés, when they came out to the top division, traditionally, Leganés fans tend to favour Atletico and are often Atletico's second team. And so in the crowd there are loads of Atletico fans in the home ends who can't get into Atletico matches or can't afford it, but they go and watch Leganés instead. So there's loads of complications, and as over the weeks as we talk about this, I think we'll see that Wrexham are not exempt from this. We have rivalries based on personal issues, based on particular powder keg games that sparked off disagreement or controversy, and some are just geographical, and some are just because we don't like that bloke who plays for Grimsby who missed a penalty against us. Naming no names.
There's so many to come up, isn't there? It's going to be interesting to talk about. I think we're going to have to start with Chester. It's that is the Wrexham fans would think that is the derby to end all derbies. I believe at one point in the mid 2000s, per person, it had one of the highest arrests in the whole of the UK. Something like top 5, and that was per arrests per person. No, I can't remember. I'm butchering the statistic a little bit. So a lot of tasty things to talk about that derby. Where two clubs, if you looked at it objectively, are really similar to each other in a lot of ways, especially these days as well. Well, maybe not so much at the moment. Now we've got Riches, Mark, but not too long ago when we were both fan owned, we were probably more similar than we were different. But we can say
there were big efforts by the clubs to tone down the sort of anger around the fixture by having a PR campaign to make exactly that point, that in many ways we've got a lot in common.
I think I will just we will wrap the rivalry bit up because I want to save some of this good stuff for when we actually do talk about the different clubs that we've got rivalries with. But maybe the closest in American sport is the university or the college games where you may have two teams within the same state who have that rivalry with each other. So maybe that's the closest thing that we can sort of say. But yeah, we'll get onto that next week. After this, we're going to be taking some fan questions.
I'm Luke Young, and this is Dragonheart.
So over the last couple of weeks, we've had a bit of disruption to Dragonheart and weren't able to quite get the fan engagement section up as much as we were hoping to. However, we do have one question from the YouTube comments from the Dragonheart from 2 weeks ago, which actually probably will take us up for the entire fan engagement section that we size-wise anyway. We have a question from, now, apologies if I get YouTube names wrong, so please do correct me in the comments if you need to. I think this says Philistine AU, but I could be wrong. Sorry about that if I butcher it, Phil. Here's his set of questions. So he asks, are the players in the current squad now competitive enough to play in League Two next year if we were to be promoted? If the team was to be promoted, would it need major changes or is it good to go? And where does the team most need to be upgraded? I think that last bit, the where does the team most need to be upgraded, that's kind of difficult to answer now in terms of we'll see at the end of the season. There could be reasons for us to need to upgrade in areas such as maybe a player were to go missing or something along those lines, you know.
Go missing?
Go missing.
Like, goes off in his canoe and then his wife claims his life insurance.
Yeah. Or takes a private jet with Ryan Reynolds and likes his life in Hollywood and doesn't want to come back. No, you know, if we were to lose players for whatever reason, or we will have a better idea by the end of the season if we've got weaker areas. But I think, you know, you were just sort of saying, Mark, off air, that I don't think, as it looks, there is an area that needs to be upgraded, really, is there? Well,
I mean, I think that links into the question about, are we ready? If we went up, would we cope? Yeah, I think we are ready to hit the ground running. I think that's the whole plan of this is, look at where we've been getting players from. We're recruiting players from higher divisions and players who have excelled in higher divisions. And that's the idea, that we're building a team. I felt this last summer, actually. We're building a team almost with the look of it being a League One team already. The logic then being that as long as you keep them motivated, which Barcelona seems to be doing very well, because there's lots of talk about the unity in the changing room, then they go through the National League and then go through League Two. And I would say at the moment, it looks like he's being successful in that. I mean, you know, just to pick, I don't want to pick out individuals really, but I will to illustrate it. But I know I'm going to miss out players who are perfectly capable of coping at a higher level. I mean, Aaron Hayden, he's going to be great in League Two. Paul Mullen, Ollie Palmer, you know, we've got the players, Jordan Davis, you know, Luke Young, they're going to be fine in League Two. They're going to do well. Max Cleworth looks like a hell of a prospect. So we've got players who have proven themselves already at that level or higher. And we've got players, who are just desperate to show what they can do. So obviously we will bring players in if we go up. You've got to. But it'll just be like last summer, I think, of adding quality to quality rather than plugging gaps, really.
Yeah, definitely. I think Humphrey Carr was interviewed before the end of last season, and he was sort of asked about what the transfer business would be like. And I think he said, you know, regardless of whether we'd have gone up or stayed down, the transfer business was going to be very similar. So they've clearly prepared as an organisation in the background, haven't they, for us to be a League Two quality squad. I think you bang on as well about, you know, the teams do tend to go up from us and then straight into League Two. straight into League One, really, straight from League Two. Just looking at the League Two table now, the top four are Leyton Orient, Stevenage, Barrow, and Salford City. So those four teams, you look at them and okay, it was a long time ago since Stevenage were in the National League, but all four of those teams have been in the National League within the last 10, 15 years. Barrow and Salford, very recently, and Stevenage have actually been in League One as well, haven't they, Mark? And come back down. You look at Grimsby are in 9th and Stockport are 18th. Okay, 18th isn't a great position in League Two, but those teams can clearly compete just by going up and surviving. And I just, we're putting a different level of money into some of these teams that will have gone up. They will have gone up healthily with a good amount of money, but we're putting a different level in again, aren't we? So you'd like to think that we would be really competitive if we did go up.
And to throw into optimistic scenarios as well, Burton were in the National League when we were joined it, and they've been up as far as the Championship. And Luton Town, much more recently, were in the National League, and they nearly got into the Premier League last year. So it's definitely possible. I can't help thinking of what Spencer Harris said about trust ownership on Dragonheart when we did our big takeover special about a year and a half ago, when he said that he knew full well that it was a challenge to get out of the National League with only one automatic place, and also because the trust didn't want to put the club's future in jeopardy, so didn't want to overspend, and therefore had to live within its means. But he felt that, although obviously the takeover hopefully will accelerate everything, he felt that eventually we would go up because we are, one of those big clubs at our level, and that even if it had been under trust ownership, with them being careful with money, he felt that the same as what you're saying, that we would still have had the capability to hit League Two and bounce straight through it, because then we'd be getting all that sweet Football League funding on top. Yeah. So suddenly the club, because we kept an even keel, would be in a good financial position and would be in a position to kick on. And that's what a lot of clubs have done. They get a big boost in their revenue when they move up from the National League, and they act on it. Well, we've had the boost in our revenue already. We'll be able to do it further. But I could say, bringing it back to the question, those players on the pitch at the moment, I would argue, are playing at a high League Two, low League One, maybe not low League One level. So, yeah, I'm not saying, we won't buy anybody for 2 years. When you stand still, you go backwards. But we're well equipped, I think, absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. And if you were to sort of take a quick look through the squad, you've got Howard, who was Carlisle's player of the season. They play in League Two. They were playing in League Two last year and still playing in League Two. You've got Mendy, who in any other universe would have only gone up to a League Two or a League One club. It's just that we've maybe got the finances to purchase a player like him. You've got Cleworth, who's a youth team player, but he's just excelling. Tozer was in a League Two team of the season. Sorry.
The team that got promoted as well,
and a team who got promoted. Yeah, Hayden was their Carlisle's vice captain when he got bought. Anthony Ford was playing in League One with Oxford. Jordan Davis has played for Brighton in the Premier League. Not actually got starts for Brighton, but has been in their academy. Luke Young consistently been one of the best players in League Two for about in the conference for about 4 or 5 years.
And had played a chunk of games for Plymouth as well.
Right, yeah, fair enough. And then you've got James Jones, who played in League One, and you've got Ollie Palmer, who's played in League One, and Paul Mullin, who was the League Two top goal scorer by some distance that year, and would have gone into League One if he hadn't come to us. So, and that's not including the other players that we've got sitting on the bench. So I know it's easy to sort of say all those things. You could argue that some players that come to our league from higher leagues are on their way down, but I don't think any of ours are really, were they, Mark?
No, exactly so. And then, like you said, people who haven't broken into the team yet properly, but people like Elliot Lee, clearly capable of playing at a higher level. So we've got real quality, strength and depth. So certainly the question of would we be okay in League Two, I would say that if we went up and didn't add to the squad, we would be seriously looking to get promoted. But we would add to the squad, having said that this is a good squad, because that's what you do, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Brought in Elliot Lee when there's no obvious place for him because he's a good player. We would do that again because we got money I said when we will go up. If we go up.
If I think it's one of those, isn't it? I think because we don't have a transfer window this year. If we're going to upgrade, it's going to happen during the year, isn't it? Because we're not having those awkward January, February scrambles where people are just trying to sign what they can because they've got an injury to their second choice centre back and they just need to get somebody in. You know, we'll be able to sort of purchase those kind of. If we were unlucky enough to have a couple of players injured, we can go and purchase those or loan those players outside of the window. So, as much as it's a good question, it's difficult to answer until closer to the end of the year or maybe a couple more games into it. But I genuinely think this team could be performing really well in League Two, definitely.
No question. All
right, well, thanks very much for that question. Speaking of questions, we are looking to get more in. So if you have any questions, please leave them at the bottom of the page on the YouTube comments. Like we said last time, we are looking at maybe resurrecting the Wrexham Discord channel. Watch this space for that one. If you have any questions from on Twitter, Reddit, all those other sort of places, it'd be fantastic to get something in. You know, we want to hear what you want to hear about. So please get questions into us and we'll do our best to answer them. Any final thoughts, Mark?
No. There you go. Southend is in Essex. So, you know, they need to be careful. Don't have any dodgy whelks or cockles.
Have we got a Tuesday game? I've completely lost on the fixtures at the moment. Is it just Southend and then a week off, is it?
I think, but I'm now lost as well.
I'll have a quick look. But on that note, it would be a shame if the Southend game were to be called off because of policing. Not that we're anticipating that, but there is also that possibility, I guess. Nothing's been said so far, but do keep your eye out just in case something does get said about that. Yeah, we've got no fixtures after Southend until Torquay, so
I'm assuming the game's okay at Southend, so I wouldn't go on that basis for the simple reason that, nothing's been said by this late date. I was wondering the same thing. I thought, surely there's going to be an issue here, but it would appear not. And then the Saturday after that, of course, is Oldham Athletic, where we've been selling tickets for that like hotcakes. Wow, and remarkable the way the tickets have been going.
Yeah, 20 minutes and we sold out 2,300, wasn't it?
Yeah, amazing.
Amazing. Yeah, absolutely. So lots of nice big games coming up. We've had pretty easy-ish run, and now we're looking at maybe a slightly more difficult one. But I'm confident the lads will get through it. Cheers, Mark. It's been a fun pod. If everybody can keep out, get on us on Facebook, Twitter. Well, are we on Facebook?
Dragonheart's on Facebook.
Dragonheart is on Facebook, but maybe we're not active on Facebook.
We could liven it up a bit. It's a bit like the National League's website, you know?
Pitch Hero run it today.
Oh, I thought you weren't going to call them out. I went very Kenneth Williams then, didn't I? Get us on all the socials. Feel free to contact us and listen to the audio commentary that we will be providing on Saturday for the Southend game. We have been Bill Long and Mark Griffiths.